Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Publis. Publis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out Publis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. Joe Samaniego here, along with Ben Schneider, Adam Lemarese, and Kobe Lambus from the Podium Finish. We invite you to share your comments, questions, and opinions in the chat room. We'd love to share it on the air. 5 races this weekend, and we have a new grid ranking leader. Shane Van Gisbergen reclaimed the lead after Kali Rovanpera crashed out at the Rock Croatia just minutes into the first stage. Less than 5 minutes, and his weekend was done. Very chaotic start to the weekend, and of course, a very chaotic end to the weekend with NASCAR at Talladega, plus an update on a severe crash from Talladega. Yesterday, during the ARCA Menards race, Derek Lancaster was in a severe crash. Coming out of turn 2, Derek and another vehicle made contact, and Derek went near head-on with the outside wall. The car continued down the long Talladega backstretch with flames coming from the engine. Once stopped, the safety crews arrived and the red flag was displayed. Derek suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns to both arms, his neck, and face. Elizabeth Lancaster said Derek was placed on a ventilator as doctors assessed damage to his lungs. We are sending our best wishes to Derek. We'll have an update throughout the week. A terrifying reminder of the dangers in motorsports. Corey Heim won the race at Talladega, sweeping both plate races this year or the ARCA Menards series. And of course, when it came to safety, that became another big topic at the end of stage 1 of the NASCAR Cup Series race, with Joey Logano going airborne. He was okay, but he was essentially done for the day. And of course, yesterday we did talk about this aero package and the safety when it comes to Talladega. Now, Ben, I know yesterday you weren't on the air with us, but when it comes to the plate package, stage points, and everything in NASCAR, are they pushing everyone's safety at the super speedway?
I think so. And I think when you look at Joey Logano's comments when he got out of the car today, I know a lot of people call him a hypocrite because he's got a reputation for blocking, but I think he made some good points, and it's something that people need to listen to. I don't know if it's just the perspective of being a young adult now versus being a kid, but I don't remember super speedway racing being this dangerous and the hits being this hard and the crashes being this bad when I was a kid. I feel like it's really stepped up a notch now that we've got this package that creates these massive runs, and we saw it with Ryan Newman at the Daytona 500 last year. We saw it with the big crash at the end of Daytona 500 this year, and I thought that we always said, we're going to race like this until we kill somebody or until somebody gets seriously hurt. Well, somebody got seriously hurt last year, and I don't feel like much has changed. I know we have a next-gen car coming in next year, so we only have 2 more races that are going to look exactly like what we've got right now. I don't know what the solution is, because I feel like if you try to err too much on the side of safety, you're going to have the single-file train that nobody likes, that we seem to have for a couple of years. I personally like tandem racing. I know a lot of people didn't, but I think going forward with the next gen car, something's got to change, because I think, to me, we're seeing drivers being put in danger unnecessarily, and I don't know. Like I tweeted that I almost didn't want to watch stage 3 because I just saw a lot of things that I didn't like, and I think something's got to change.
Does seem like something has to change, especially as you brought up last year, Ryan Newman getting seriously injured. Then, of course, Daytona 500, a scary last lap crash. I saw a big fireball when Brad Keselowski's fuel tank got ruptured with that outside wall. Now, we also saw at the very end of the race a very hard hit for Ross Chastain. Thankfully, he was okay. NASCAR announced he was checked out and released from the infield medical center. We didn't really hear that on the air, but NASCAR did tweeted that. Eric Jones was also treated and released from the infield medical center. When it comes to Talladega being the wild, unpredictable race that we always anticipate the super speedways to be, does it become too wild and essentially a turnoff for the fans?
Well, Joe, I think it's a mixed bag. You'll have some of those fans who watch NASCAR, these super speed races just for the wrecks, and and if you look at some of the wrecks at Talladega, we've seen over the years when you see the shots of the fans in the infield or whatever, when the cars are wrecking, they're standing up cheering, enjoying every moment of it. Yeah, so for some people, they just watch racing for the wrecks, and while others, they're more concerned about everyone involved, the drivers obviously, and then the fans. We've seen fans get injured when a car's gone flying in the fence debris going into the grandstand. I do think super speedway racing is a turnoff for some, but it's certainly not a turnoff for everyone.
As someone who's gone to Talladega, I can say that super speedway racing is, like Kobe said, a mixed bag. Personally, for me, I like it because in these super speed races, it's like a wild card race, and you never know who will win. We had so many guys contending for the win today. Overall, for me, I enjoyed the race, and hopefully, when the series goes back to Daytona in July, hopefully it'll be another good race. But most important of all, hopefully it's a much safer race.
I'm glad, Joe, that you brought up Ross Chastain, because I've got to call out Fox. I hate doing it because I know that there are a lot of good people at both Fox and NBC, both of NASCAR's TV partners. But when something like that happens on the last lap, if Ross Chastain's okay, if he's not okay, we got to hear an update from somebody before we get a tweet from Bob Pockrass on Twitter that confirms he's been released from the infield care center. I know a lot of fans were concerned, and I was refreshing my feed to see if we got anything from Fox or from anybody on whether or not Ross was okay. And, just to answer your question, I think I kind of answered it, just a little bit ago. Like, I tweeted that I didn't really want to watch stage 3 because I just could sense, I had this feeling that something was going to happen. And fortunately, we didn't really see a big accident, or a big one, as I guess the trademark phrase is. But we very well could have. And with the way drivers were having to block and the massive runs they were getting, there's just something about this package that is a turnoff for me. And it's gone from me being excited every time we go to a super speedway race, because you could see a wild card winner, you could see an exciting finish, but you could also see a massive accident. So I've started to dread them more than I've been getting excited about them.
I have to say as well, the excitement level for Talladega, Daytona always seems to be there. There's always the knowledge that big one could happen, but I do feel like lately, especially these hard big ones where you are seeing drivers pushing it. I mean, Joey Logano's comments today, I think really should bring a red flag to NASCAR. Like, we need to look at the safety. He's one of the taller drivers. He said he got bumped on the head. That means we need to really look into stopping these vehicles from going airborne at Talladega. One driver that was involved in the crash, but not as big as a hard hit, was Denny Hamlin. Only the second time this year he's finished outside the top 10, but now we have another different winner, Brad Keselowski. 9 different winners in the Cup Series first 10 races. Keselowski, a lot of people anticipated he will win this year, so we sort of saw that coming. In fact, all 3 Penske drivers have won. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of Matt Benedetto, who was in the lead when they took the white flag. But then we all saw he made the move, tried to block the outside lane. Wasn't a whole lot of vehicles in the outside line, but he made that move, and everyone's saying he made the wrong move to try to block that outside lane. My question for each of you, we know hindsight's easy to say that was the wrong move, but at the moment, when you're up front and you just notice an outside line coming, do you stay in the bottom or do you try to block the outside line?
For me, I believe that you're going to have to stay on the bottom and just try to find a way to hold on. I know on the outside you're going to have a huge train coming, but I believe at places like Daytona and Talladega, last 10 laps, it's it's like a poker game. All your chips go in the middle. It's a free for all, and it's just to hang on and see who comes out on top. But I believe today, if Matty D would have stayed on the bottom, he would have won and captured the Wood Brothers' 100th career race.
Yes, and comparing this race and the Xfinity race yesterday, I watched two different races with the Xfinity cars. Obviously, they don't have that big spoiler and all of the power where the runs are too big. If you saw a run coming from the top, you had time to move up there to block the move. But with these Cup cars, you have to move like right there, and it's like a split-second decision. With an Xfinity car, it's like maybe a second and a half. You have a decision. You have a lot longer to make a decision in those Xfinity cars. But with this Cup car, if you see a hole closing up, you have to go up there right now, forever hold your peace, because otherwise it could get really ugly. And looking at the move that Matt DiBenedetto made, obviously everything is happening way so fast with these huge runs, and I don't really think there's nothing more that he could have done. Yes, he could have done this, he could have done that, but overall, this is just what this package is with super speedway racing.
Yeah, obviously hindsight's 2020, but I don't know. Like we've talked about the package for the entire show here. It's just so unpredictable, and you have a split fraction of a second to decide whether or not you're going to block a lane that's coming with momentum, or if the lane behind you is still going to have momentum to push you along. You don't need to block the outside lane because the inside's going to give you that push. I don't know that if Matt DiBenedetto stays on the bottom, that Keselowski doesn't pass him coming down the backstretch anyway with the help that he's got. Would Matt DiBenedetto want to have it back? I think obviously because he didn't win, so he'd want to try to go into a scenario where he could end up winning the race. But I don't think you can say Matt DiBenedetto just lost the race because of the move he made or because of the move he didn't make, just because of how unpredictable everything is.
Everything's so unpredictable, and I think you all bring up a good point. You have a split second. Had you said wait another second longer, but the outside line was too better organized, could Ryan Blaney have gotten around? Then we'll be all saying he should have gone block that lane. It's just one of those deals where with the package and the big runs that we saw, he just makes it really hard. One of the things that we saw making life hard for Chevrolet and Toyota seems to be Ford. In the past, we've seen the manufacturers, they all team up, work together. It doesn't seem to be too much of an issue today, but Ford's were, out of the three manufacturers, they appear to be the most organized. Toyotas, they had two fast Toyotas, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace. Chevrolets, they were there, but they didn't seem as organized as Ford did. Because Ford has the upper hand in the super speedways, what can the other manufacturers learn from them?
Yeah, I think they do. There's just something about the Fords that seems to allow them to connect better than the Chevys and Toyotas. One thing that the Chevys also have is numbers, and that's one area where Toyota is very disadvantaged because you have Gibbs and 2311's one car. Harrison Burton was in the race today for Gaunt Brothers, and then I guess I think there was one other Toyota, right? MBM, I think. But they don't have the backing of TRD or anything like that. So when it comes to drafting, Toyota's really outnumbered. So if you see a couple of the Toyotas get taken out in accidents or have some sort of bad luck, it really puts them at a disadvantage, and they almost have to try to team up with a Chevrolet driver or a Ford driver. So I think Ford definitely has the edge, but I think it's going to be, as long as these manufacturer games keep being played, or until somebody from a Chevy or Ford camp decides to switch to Toyota, which I don't know that any teams are looking at switching manufacturers anytime soon. I think Toyota's really the ones that have to try to overcome that disadvantage rather than even Ford having much of an advantage themselves.
I completely agree with you, Ben. Right now, when it comes to the super speedways, it's hard to beat those Fords. You've got Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Matthew Benedetto, and if you watch the race today, they had a line they were in line all for most of the race. 9 Fords in a row. You really didn't see that today with Chevy and Ford. I mean, Chevy and Toyota. So I guess if you're gonna, I guess now in the super speedways, if you want to win, you're gonna have to find a way to beat those Fords because I believe they're the manufacturer to beat at both Talladega and Daytona.
I have to agree. Force, they seem to be the manufacturer to beat at the super speedways. And of course, we have the next super speedway at Daytona, the regular season finale, and of course, Talladega in the playoffs. Definitely going to be very exciting. But when we come to these tracks, but of course, I think the big thing we're going to be following, and we encourage everyone to subscribe to the Grid Network because we will report it if there are any changes in the aero package for the upcoming super speedway races. But a big thing we had to discuss started off as the other big chaotic event, Formula E.
Yesterday, the Formula E race had a very controversial finish with only 9 racers scoring points. The top 10 changed more since we last reported yesterday. The FIA said that Antonio Felix da Costa made life difficult, and the defending series champion disagreed with their assessment and posted about it on Twitter, and he would have likely faced protests from other teams if he did make life difficult. This is really surprising to me that the series would say this about one of their drivers, especially the defending champion of the series. And there are no changes coming with how Formula E handles safety cars and energy reduction. With this incident behind us now, is everyone more aware of what can go wrong in order to prevent it from happening again?
I do believe now everyone has learned from what happened here. Formula E, the teams, next drivers meeting, teams meeting, they could discuss this. And then when they are all together, the next race weekend at Monaco, they can discuss more what happened and how not to let this happen again. It was just so bizarre. And we've seen so many people were upset with how the race turned out, where you only had 3 vehicles running to the end, especially for the first year as a world championship.
Yeah, I know a lot of people don't like Formula E because of the gimmicks and everything. And I'm just going to be honest with you all. I didn't get to see either Formula E race this weekend because I was busy in the mornings and working yesterday. But I heard about it because it was all over my feed about how much of a farce it was and how Formula E should be ashamed of themselves and people just absolutely roasting them online. I think when you have a series that is already not too popular with the purists, and you have these controversies of drivers running out of usable energy. Like we were talking about during the NASCAR portion of the show. I think there's some serious problems right now in the series, and they need to be sorted out to prevent something like this from happening again, because it certainly wasn't a good look.
The second race saw many more drivers finish the race, and we got a first-time winner. Jake Dennis and Andre Lauderer came in as 2 drivers with no points scored. This was Jake's very first Formula E victory. Andre Lauderer got points, so the entire Formula E field has scored points. It really just shows the great amount of parity there, unlike Formula One, where some seasons you'll have drivers who won't score a single point. But here's the really shocking part about race 2 in Valencia. The top 5 in the Formula E standings didn't score a single point. Were you shocked that none of the top 5 in the points failed to score today?
I was surprised that none of them did. But I think, Kobe, to your point, you just mentioned it, the parity in Formula E is much greater than, say, Formula One. So I wouldn't say that I'd be shocked, given there are 24 drivers and only 10 point scoring positions, and given the parity in the sport. I think that you can't be too completely shocked by it, but certainly a little surprising to see none of the top 5 finish in the points today.
Very surprised that none of the top 5 finish in the points, especially we anticipated Mercedes to come up towards the front, and Stoffel Van Dorn was doing that. Then he gets in that crash when he was trying to overtake Sebastian Buemi. That was it for him. He was done. But Nick DeVries, Sam Bird, Robert Fringe, Mitch Evans, they were just nowhere in sight. They weren't making the progress like we anticipated on not just a street course, a natural road course. Yes, they added the chicanes because these are electric vehicles and the wind resistance. But it was very shocking to see on dry conditions, they were just stuck there. I do think it talks about the parity of this, but I feel like, especially we saw Stoffel Van Dorn, he was working his way towards the front. Had he been a little bit more patient, he may have scored points. But it's just part of the parity of Formula E and part of the craziness of the series.
Yeah, definitely a part of the parody, part of all of the craziness that we see in Formula E. I just know one thing: it's going to be a crazy fight for the championship. I have a feeling that it might come down to the very final weekend with the Berlin doubleheader. And the next race on the Formula E calendar is Monaco. Yes, the streets of Monte Carlo. Really glad that we'll be racing there again after 1 year away. The Monaco E Prix and in the past, Formula E's run a modified layout. But this time, it's going to be the full layout that you see for the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix. It is going to be such a highly anticipated race and a big moment for Formula E, especially the first time since they're being recognized now as a world championship. Will a good race weekend at Monaco put Formula E in higher regard?
I do think it will put Formula E in a higher regard when it comes to motorsports and especially business partners. Formula E, they got a good amount of sponsors that we see with ABB, DHL, everybody involved. This race, especially the controversy that we saw in Saturday's race, this is a good way to showcase, look, we're in Monte Carlo. Businesses are here, some of the glamour of everything that is Monaco. And of course, it's the first race since 2019 when the pandemic struck. I think this is really a big opportunity for Formula E. The one thing I think they need to have a good race weekend, have a good race weekend for the entire series, and could really set the series to a big positive momentum ahead.
You know, I think there are certain demographics that Formula E's never going to impress just based on the fact that the series races electric cars and has the gimmicks such as fan boost and attack mode. But running the full circuit at Monaco, I think can only help. And they're going to need it after the farce that we saw this weekend. They need all the good press they can get. I'm excited to see Formula E cars on the full layout, and at Monaco again. So I'm hoping for a good race.
Yes, I think that competing at Monaco, especially the full layout, is certainly going to put Formula E in high regard. But Ben, you brought up a good point that there are just certain parts of the demographics that Formula E will never impress, and they'll never respect Formula E as a world championship. But the one thing they have going for them, in order to show that the series is not a complete joke, like a lot of the naysayers say about Formula E, they can say, "Hey, if our series was a complete joke, they would not invite us to race on the streets of Monte Carlo, the historic Monaco. If they were a joke, Monaco would just laugh them away and be like, nope, you're not coming to race here."
Now, one big street course that we've seen this past weekend and it's starting to really grow is St. Pete's. Last year, it was the season finale. Normally, it's the season starting race. This year, the second round, Barber Motorsports last race weekend. But one of the big things we saw, Newgarden coming in, trying to go for 3 in a row, but he was denied by Colton Herta. Led every lap except for 3 laps during green flag pit stops. That's essentially the big thing that we saw was Colton Herta come out here, especially after what happened in Barber Motorsports. He called this race part of a championship effort. Considering how cool and calm he was after crashing at Barber Motorsports Park, is Colton Herta at that championship level he needs to be in?
Well, the one thing that amazes me about Colton Herta is the fact that I'm older than him. It's just kind of crazy to me to see how successful he's already become at such a young age. And I think I loved Brian Herta's answer when he was being interviewed coming down to the closing laps, asking if Colton was more nervous than him or who was more nervous of the two. And he said, neither of us. It just seems like they're so cool under pressure. And Colton Herta needed a good race after the troubles last weekend in Alabama. He got that. An absolutely dominating statement today with his victory. I think absolutely he's got to be considered an early championship contender at this point.
I'm going to say yes as well. Like you talked about, he had a really strong performance at St. Pete. And for those of you who don't know, Brian Herta is Colton's dad, and Brian had a really successful IndyCar career when he was around. So do I think Colton Herta is a championship contender? Yes. Do I think he has a shot to win at least a couple more races? Yes.
And one of the big things I would also say with Colton Herta now, with that 26 of Andretti Motorsports, no longer with a satellite team, full resources to go out there and really compete. And especially after what happened at Barber Motorsports Park, he could have easily had a horrible attitude, just been all negative. In fact, last week we even talked about, was he too passive of, don't worry, everyone's going to have a bad race. Well, he really backed up his attitude last weekend by coming out and winning. Big rebound weekend for Joseph Newgarden as well. He was involved in that first lap crash at Alabama. And already in the NTT IndyCar Series, only 5 drivers have a top 10 finish so far this season. Scott Dixon, Will Power, Sebastian Bourdais, Rinus VeeKay, and Marcus Ericsson. And Scott Dixon, the only one with 2 top 5 finishes. How important is the consistency in the IndyCar Series? Or can a driver be okay with poor consistency, but multiple wins?
Oh, it's really important to be consistent. But like Colton Herta said last week, it's okay if you have a bad race every now and then, because I'm sure everyone's going to have at least one bad race, but you don't need to let one bad race turn into multiple bad races. But you mentioned the stat there, Scott Dixon, the only one with 2 top 5 finishes. We all know Scott Dixon's probably going to win a race at some point this season, and if he keeps doing Scott Dixon things, remaining consistent, we might see Scott Dixon rack off another championship. He's always one of the favorites entering the season. But in general, yes, it's good to be consistent. Yes, it's good to get wins. But if you win like every now and then and inconsistently having a lot of problems, even if it's none of your doing, that can really hurt you.
Yeah, go ask Ryan Newman from 2003 if he's okay with winning a bunch of races but not being all that consistent. And look where he finished in the championship, and ask if it doesn't matter. It absolutely matters to be consistent, especially in a series where there's so much parity. There's so many drivers who can win on any given race weekend. Like Kobe, like you said, like Colton Herta said after his troubles at Alabama, you can definitely have at least 1 or 2 bad races and still be in contention. But you have to be able to prove that you're going to be able to run up front week in and week out if you want to have a shot at a championship.
Week in and week out to prove you have a shot at a championship. And one of the big things, of course, Alex Palou, he still leads the championship in the NTT IndyCar Series standings. He is 2 points ahead of Will Power and Scott Dixon, tied behind him. And Colton Herta, with his win, he's only 5 points behind Alex Palou in 4th place. Next race weekend, a doubleheader at Texas Motor Speedway. Of course, that's going to be a big race, and now a Saturday and a Sunday race. Who has the most to gain and lose in Texas next weekend?
I think Alexander Rossi has the most to gain. You look at him having a okay, not great, not terrible race in Alabama, and then his struggles today with the incident with Graham Rahal. He's got to step up and get to the front sooner rather than later. So when you look at where he is relative in the standings right now, I think he has definitely the most potential to go out, and if he wins one or both of the Texas races, I think it's going to do wonders for him and maybe get him back in the championship fight. So he probably has the most to gain. In terms of who has the most to lose, we're still early in the season. I know Palou is still leading the points, so maybe you could say he has the most to lose, but I don't know that there's any one person that you can single out at this point.
I'll agree with you, Ben. When the IndyCar series goes to Texas, the drivers I'm going to be looking out for are Alexander Rossi, James Hinchcliffe, Takuma Sato, and I wouldn't count out Scott McLaughlin, even though because last year he tested there, and his tests were very successful. So I believe this will be the first time he's run in IndyCar race on an oval. So we shall see how he does. The driver who has most to lose, it's still too early for me.
I say definitely when it comes to drivers to watch, going to be looking at Newgarden. He's going to be somebody to watch. When it comes to most to lose, I'm actually thinking of Will Power. Will Power, it seems like he has these races where he could come in, have a solid finish, but then some bad luck. And sometimes it seems like one bad race leads to another bad race, some more bad luck. It's very early on, so if he was to come in, have a bad race, he's still got plenty of time to recover. But I just feel like sometimes Will Power just doesn't have the best luck when it comes to some races. And Texas Motor Speedway is going to be a big, challenging race weekend for everyone in the NTT IndyCar series.
And add one more note about IndyCar. We learned this weekend that Will Power signed a 2-year contract extension with Team Penske through the 2023 season. So for Will Power, that's going to give him a lot of comfort moving forward. He's not going to be under pressure that I need to perform or I could lose my ride at Team Penske. So definitely Will Power can just go out there and do what Will Power knows best. Go out there, get consistent finishes and scoring poles. He's one of the best qualifiers that I've seen in IndyCar, despite he had a really troubling weekend this time around. And Will Power should certainly be in the hunt for wins throughout the rest of the season. Now moving on to World Rally Championship in Croatia, was the third round of the season. As we mentioned before, Kali Rovanpera was out less than 4 minutes into the weekend. That was fast. And then allowed Thierry Neuville to take the lead on Friday. But Saturday, Sebastian Ogier came in, taking the lead, and never letting go of it. We saw Ottonic win stages on the tarmac. However, Ogier was not going to be denied his second win of the season. Elfyn Evans, his fellow Toyota teammate, was second. Thierry Neuville, third. The top five are within a week of taking the points lead, 3 Toyotas and 2 Hyundais. Any particulars you'll be watching in Portugal the next round?
Portugal, the next round, 3 drivers that have won there recently, Ottonic, Thierry Neuville, and Sebastian Ogier. With that said, I think Sebastian Ogier has to be the easy favorite. However, Tonic, the Hyundais, he was really fast in those tarmac stages. When we come to Portugal, I think that could really help him out in these stages. He's getting the hang of the chemistry with that team, and I think that's going to be the team to watch. Possibly might pick a winner, but still, we got quite some time. I'm not going to exactly share it if he is going to be my pick a winner or not.
One driver I'm going to be looking out for is the driver that finished second today, Elfyn Evans. He comes from a part of the world that has produced 2 really good rally champions in the past, Richard Burns and Colin McRae. Another driver I'll be looking out for is Sebastian Ogier. The World Rally Championship is a very successful championship, and you have a lot of different drivers competing for round wins each time out. So it should be interesting when the series heads to Portugal.
Yes, World Rally Championship is very competitive. I wish they made it easier for all of us based here in the United States, so it'd be a lot easier to follow. But definitely, we do enjoy covering World Rally Championship. And the Portugal Rally is May 20th through 23rd, a month away. That'll be round number 4. Depending on what happens with supercars and everyone else, there's a good chance that Sebastian Ogier may lead the grid ranking at some point during the season.
Definitely very big potential. And as we entered the grid ranking week 4 standings, taking a look at each series ratings, of course, the top 5 from each series that are rated in the grid ranking are then advanced to the grid ranking. So 35 drivers comprise of the grid ranking. And essentially, as we talked about, Shane Van Gisbergen, even though the Australian Supercar Series did not race this past weekend, he inherited the lead with Kali Rovanpera having to go out so early. Sebastian Ogier is right there behind him. So definitely it's going to be really tightening it up. And as you take a look at MotoGP, Fabio Quartararo is up in the top 10. They weren't racing this past weekend. So it's going to be really interesting as the grid ranking continues to move forward each and every race weekend. We're going to be here. And of course, we encourage everyone to subscribe. Now with all 7 series being scored, the most significant move we saw was from Formula E. But it wasn't for a good reason at all. Because of the craziness of Formula E, as you can see, they are way down towards the bottom of the standings. Nick de Vries, way down there, 25th position. Not a good race weekend at all when it came to Formula E and essentially the craziness that is that series. When it comes to Formula E, were you surprised to see Mercedes and Jaguar not score any points on Sunday.
Yes, it was very surprising to see both Mercedes and Jaguar drivers not score any points at all. But it just goes to show that we mentioned it earlier in the program with all of the parity in Formula E and all of the craziness, the unpredictable nature. So honestly, maybe we shouldn't be surprised that they didn't score, because it seems like whenever you turn on a Formula E race, there's a lot of things that can happen, and we can't really guess what the final outcome is going to be.
Yeah, I feel completely the same way. Knowing Mercedes and Jaguar have had some success this year, a little surprising, but given the parity in Formula E that we're all used to at this point, and especially what happened on Saturday, although I guess we're talking about Sunday in particular here. But I guess you can't be too surprised to see Mercedes and Jaguar not be in the points when talking about one race in particular, just because of how great the parity is.
Now, the next race weekend, of course, we have Formula One. We have IndyCar, MotoGP, and the NASCAR Cup Series. Starting with Formula One, of course, we're going to have essentially round 3 of Hamilton versus Verstappen. Is the battle between the two drivers the best rivalry in motorsports in 2021 so far?
I think it is. And I've got to tell you guys, we talked about it last week. I have not been this excited for a Formula One season in quite a long time, because I feel like the battle is truly on this year between Verstappen and Hamilton. And I am just really hopeful. I don't care if Lewis gets his 8th, if Max gets his 1st or whatever. I just hope it goes down to the last race. I think it's got a really good chance to. And they could not be closer in points or on the track than they've been in the first 2 races, with them splitting one race each. So I'm totally looking forward to Sunday and looking forward to the rest of the season, because I think we've got a great rivalry on our hands in Formula One right now.
And I'll agree completely with you, Ben. I believe this is what fans have been wanting in Formula One for a very long time, because normally it's been Lewis Hamilton versus the field. When we look back at Formula One's history, there have been so many really good rivalries on the track. Most notably, Ayrton Senna versus Alain Prost, and Alain Prost versus Nigel Mansell. It should be interesting going to the rest of the Formula One season to see one of the top motorsports rivalries in the world right now.
I do agree that it's certainly been a Formula One season that fans and all spectators have been wanting for a very long time, and without a doubt, this is certainly one of the top rivalries of motorsports right now. Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen, like you said, it used to be Lewis Hamilton versus the field. Now it's like Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen versus the field, and I'd really like to see that championship go down to the wire to the very last race, because I know sometimes it's really frustrating when the championship is wrapped up early, and then basically it's just go out there and race and just get what you can get. But certainly really looking forward to watching Verstappen versus Hamilton for the rest of the season, and maybe their teammates can get into scrap every now and again. Checo getting used to the Red Bull, the second car, which is typically cursed over there, and Valtteri Bottas. I think the pressure is going to be at an all-time high for him to perform.
A lot of pressure on that other Red Bull, and I think that's the big key in making sure this rivalry between Verstappen and Hamilton continues on. It's going to be really interesting to see which one of those two gets the win, have the upper hand. It'd be a surprise. What if one of the other 2 drivers in each team gets that win? It's going to be really interesting year, and I do have to agree with everyone. So far in 2021, that is the best rivalry that we see right now. One of the big things before we switch topics, the Grid World Motorsport League top 10, Shane Van Gisbergen continues to lead that. Not a whole lot of changes, except for Sebastian Ogier with that win. He has jumped up to 4th place. And of course, it's going to be a little while till we see the next World Rally Championship. So as drivers have bad races, there's a very good possibility that Ogier could inherit the lead. It's going to be very interesting to follow the Grid World Motorsport League. And we encourage everyone to follow them on Twitter at grid_WML.
Now switching gears to Xfinity. Yesterday, the NASCAR Xfinity Series raced at Talladega in a rain-shortened event. College Racing won their third consecutive race as an organization at Talladega. Justin Haley swept both races last year, but yesterday it was the driver of the number 10 Chevrolet, Jeb Burton, going to victory lane for the first time in Xfinity. Jeb was very emotional after winning, likely thinking about the long road that it took to get to this point. In 2013, he won in the Truck Series at Texas Motor Speedway, driving for Turner Scott Motorsports. Since then, his racing career has been full of ups and downs. Jeb switched to Thor Sport for a single Truck Series season in 2014, and then in 2015 went full-time Cup racing with BK Racing. After that, some one-off drives here and there, part-time rides for backmarkers and competitive teams. Among all three national series in 2019 and 2020, he ran part-time with JR Motorsports. When you combine both years, he had a total of 18 races, 5 top 5s, 12 top 10s. Now he's full-time with Colic Racing after all these years looking for a full season of racing. How inspirational is Jeb Burton's win to other drivers out there still scrapping for that one big break?
I believe it's really cool to see Jeb Burton in victory lane, and it's going to encourage a lot of young drivers, to say, hey, if people like Josh Berry and Jeb Burton can win in the Xfinity Series, then maybe I have a shot when I'm in one of those seats. I agree. It was really emotional yesterday. To me, hopefully he wins a lot. Hopefully Jeb Burton wins a lot more races in the years to come.
Yeah, it was great for Colleague as a whole, with Jeb Burton winning the race, Allmendinger up in the top 3, Justin Haley in the top 10, and then Kaz Grala today with a 6th-place finish in the Cup race. So a great weekend for the entire team. And, Jeb Burton in particular, I don't know that people realize, like we've been talking about here, just how much of a grind it's been. He's got a last name with his famous father, Ward, and his famous uncle, Jeff. But, Jeb Burton's been around for a while, and he's been a true journeyman, bouncing around, from series to series, team to team. Finally looks like he's found a home with Colleague this year, and definitely made the most of it, getting a win this weekend. And the way Colleague's cars have looked the last couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jeb get a couple more before the year's over.
Yeah, it seems like we have a comment from a viewer. Yeah, Seth right there says just never give up, keep fighting. Absolutely right. And Ben, you basically hit the nail on the coffin. It's definitely been a grind for Jeb Burton, and luckily he was able to get that big break. And some other drivers, they've been grinding for years and years and still haven't gotten it. But you mentioned Kaz Grala, a nice top 10 finish today at Talladega. And in 3 Cup races, Kaz Grala has finished in the top 10 twice, and that's really huge for a young driver. I know he's talked about how frustrating it can be running, a partial schedule when you know how talented of a driver you are and that you're capable of running full time in the Cup Series or any series in NASCAR. And so drivers like Kaz Grala, I think Jeb Burton can definitely serve as a wonderful inspiration to them. And unfortunately, we're getting close to out of time for our program today, and that means it's time for our grid, one shining moment of the weekend, the one thing that stood out to you. And I encourage all of our viewers in the chat room, please let us know what is your one shining moment from this weekend. And Joe, we're going to start off with you.
For the one shining moment, I have to go to the series that we talked about with the most parity and the most crazy, and that is Max Gunther's performance Sunday. He got the pole. A lot of people have said at Valencia, the pole sitter was going to be a sitting duck because you're the one that's going to have the most air. You were going to have to essentially try not to lead. And he even said post-race, I was hoping Lynn, second place, was going to pass me for the lead. That didn't happen. They knew what they were doing. Let him use the battery, and especially after what happened on Saturday. And coming into the weekend, he was one of the few drivers that had not scored a single point. He dominated the race. He stayed out front. He was cool under pressure, including the second to last lap. His engineer telling him on the radio, you need to slow down by a second to ensure you start the final lap, or else we're going to be out of power. and he had a train of vehicles behind him, got to that start-finish line right on time, start the final lap, go out there, get his first Formula E win, first for already Autosport this year. So it's pretty cool hearing the U.S. national anthem there. And of course, for BMW to get a win before they exit the season. That was my shining moment.
Well, my one shining moment has to deal with something that happened in St. Petersburg. Sebastian and Oliver Weldon have signed contracts to be a part of Andretti's developmental program. And the last name Weldon should be familiar to viewers because that is the late, great, because Sebastian and Oliver are the late Dan Weldon's sons. So to see this is really cool. They're going to start off in go-karts, and they've said that they want to compete in the Indycar series and eventually competing in the Indy 500. So that was my one shining moment of the weekend.
I have to give a call to 65-year-old Dave Mader III, who finished second in the ARCA race yesterday, 30 years after he won an ARCA race at Michigan and finished second at Talladega in 1991, long before the vast majority of the ARCA field was even born. It's so cool to see a guy like him have a strong run, and who knows, maybe if ARCA didn't have the one-lap shootout, if they had run another lap, he maybe would have even had a shot to win it. But so great to see him up there, get a good finish, and just absolutely an incredible moment for him and his team. Got to make that my one shining moment for sure.
Yeah, Dave Mader III. What a finish for him. That was a really special moment. And my one shining moment for the weekend, Adam, you took it from me, but it's the announcement that happened in St. Pete yesterday morning. We were all expecting something different. We thought that Andretti was going to be announcing a 6th car for the Indianapolis 500. That's what I was expecting. And then when they announced that they've signed Oliver and Sebastian Weldon to development driver contracts, I'll be honest, that completely caught me off guard, but it was certainly a pleasant surprise, and to some might even bring a tear to the eye, knowing how much Dan Weldon meant to the sport. And now it seems like both of his sons are going to be following in his footsteps. Andretti Autosport is going to develop them, get them the experience they need at the lower levels, get them on the road to Indy, and maybe someday we'll see 2 Weldon brothers racing in the NTT IndyCar series.
Very exciting weekend for Braves fans all over. And we encourage everyone to be sure to join our Patreon. Keep us on the air. Big thank you to Colin for approaching 1 year of his support. Be a supporter like Colin. Keep us on the air, the Grid Network. Definitely subscribe to us on YouTube here. Ensure you don't miss any of our programs. And we encourage everyone, especially if you're on TikTok, be sure to follow us on TikTok. And on the video links, link to Populous, where you get your 10% discount for being a Grid Network viewer. If you need dog leashes, dog clothing, and want proceeds to your sale to help homeless, sick, and rescue dogs, this is the great site to do it. A lot of great accessories for you to go check out and get your furry family buddy as well. For Adam Lemeries, Ben Schneider, and Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Populous. Populous is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out populous.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.